Captain Sarah Mitchell crouched beside the A-10 Thunderbolt's landing gear, her grease-stained coveralls blending seamlessly with a maintenance crew bustling around the aircraft. The morning sun cast long shadows across the tarmac as she methodically checked hydraulic connections, her movements precise and practiced. Most personnel walking past assumed she was just another mechanic, their eyes sliding over her slight frame without recognition. The radio chatter from the control tower crackled through nearby speakers, discussing weather conditions and flight schedules. Sarah listened intently while appearing absorbed in her work, her trained ear catching nuances others missed. A group of F-16 pilots strutted past, their flight suits pristine and patches gleaming, discussing the day's combat air patrol with loud confidence. Lieutenant Davies, the squadron's newest hotshot, paused near her position. "You still working on that old warthog?" he asked dismissively. "Thing belongs in a museum, not a combat zone." His companions chuckled, their laughter carrying across the flight line as they continued toward their sleek fighters. Sarah said nothing, simply tightened another fitting with methodical precision. Her calloused hands moved with the kind of efficiency that came from thousands of hours of experience, though none of the passing airmen bothered to notice. The A-10's massive Gu-8 cannon loomed above her, its 7 barrels a testament to devastating firepower that few truly understood. "Where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it there right now?" The briefing room buzzed with tension as Colonel Harrison spread tactical maps across the table. Sarah slipped in through the back door, notebook in hand, assuming her usual position along the wall with other support personnel. The overhead projector cast harsh shadows as the mission parameters took shape on the screen. Operation Nightfall required precision insertion of a 6-man SEAL team into hostile territory, followed by extraction under fire. The target was a high-value intelligence asset trapped behind enemy lines, surrounded by heavily fortified positions and anti-aircraft systems. Major Thompson, the SEAL team leader, studied the terrain with grim focus. "We'll need close air support," standing by the major said, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "Those ridgelines are crawling with RPGs and surface-to-air missiles. The F-16S can provide cover, but they'll be operating at altitude to avoid the threat envelope." Lieutenant Davies leaned forward eagerly. "My flight can handle the CAP, sir. We've got the speed and altitude advantage." Colonel Harrison nodded approvingly, while Sarah remained silent in the shadows, her eyes tracking every detail of the tactical display. The enemy positions formed a deadly gauntlet around the extraction point. Sarah could visualize the terrain from her own reconnaissance flights, seeing angles and approach vectors that others missed. Her fingers traced invisible flight paths through the air as she calculated distances and timing. The SEALs would be walking into a nightmare, and the fast movers overhead might not be able to provide the kind of surgical precision needed when things went sideways. But nobody asked the maintenance crew for tactical input, so Sarah simply took notes and waited. The pre-dawn darkness enveloped the flight line as the SEAL team conducted final equipment checks near their insertion helicopter. Sarah watched from her position beside the A-10, ostensibly performing routine maintenance while the real mission preparations unfolded around her. The Blackhawk's rotors began their slow spin-up, creating a rhythmic thump that echoed across the base. Major Thompson approached Colonel Harrison near the command vehicle, their voices low but urgent. "Sir, we're looking at a 12-hour window before enemy reinforcements arrive. If extraction goes wrong, we'll need immediate close air support, not high-altitude coverage." The colonel nodded grimly. "The F-16S will maintain orbit at 20,000 feet. They can provide suppressive fire if needed." Sarah's grip tightened on her wrench as she listened, knowing the limitations of high-speed aircraft in close support scenarios. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, the SEAL team's communications specialist, jogged past her position toward the helicopter. His equipment pack bristled with antennas and encrypted radios, designed to maintain contact through the most challenging environments. The weight of their mission showed in every team member's focused preparation. Lieutenant Davies emerged from the pilot briefing trailer, his flight suit adorned with confidence patches and kill markings. He glanced dismissively at Sarah's coveralls before climbing into his F-16's cockpit. The fighter's engines whined to life, adding to the cacophony of departure preparations. As the Black Hawk lifted off into the darkness, Sarah felt the familiar knot of concern building in her stomach. She had flown enough combat missions to recognize the signs of an operation balanced on a knife's edge, where split-second decisions would determine who came home alive. The command center hummed with subdued activity as radio operators monitored multiple frequencies. Sarah had positioned herself near the communications desk, clipboard in hand, appearing to inventory spare parts while actually listening to the mission's progress. The digital displays showed friendly positions moving deeper into enemy territory. Nightfall 1. "This is base control," came the controller's voice through crackling speakers. "Report status on primary objective." Major Thompson's response carried the strain of movement under fire. "Base control, Nightfall 1. We have visual on the package. Heavy resistance encountered. Estimate 40-plus hostiles in fortified positions." Sarah's trained ear caught the tension beneath the professional calm. She had been in similar situations, calling for close air support while pinned down by overwhelming enemy fire. The tactical display showed the SEAL team's position surrounded by red threat indicators, each representing weapons capable of turning the extraction into a massacre. Colonel Harrison leaned over the radio operator's shoulder, his face etched with concern. "Give me a status update from the F-16S," he ordered. The response came immediately from Lieutenant Davies, his voice confident despite the deteriorating situation below. "Base control, Viper flight maintaining CAP at Angels 20. We have visual on ground forces, but cannot engage due to proximity to friendlies." The inherent limitation of high-speed fighters became painfully clear. Their altitude and speed prevented the surgical precision needed when friendly and enemy forces were locked in close combat. Sarah shifted position slightly, her eyes never leaving the tactical display where red and blue icons clustered dangerously close together. Time was running out, and the conventional air support was proving inadequate for the evolving ground situation. The radio crackled with increasing desperation as Major Thompson's voice cut through static. "Base control, Nightfall 1 is taking heavy fire from multiple positions. We need immediate close air support on these coordinates." The numbers he rattled off painted a picture of a team surrounded and running low on options. Sarah watched the tactical display update in real time, showing the SEAL team's position compressed into an increasingly smaller defensive perimeter. Red enemy indicators multiplied around their location like a spreading infection. Colonel Harrison paced behind the communications desk, his frustration evident as conventional solutions proved inadequate. Lieutenant Davies' voice responded from high overhead. "Base control, Viper flight cannot engage targets that close to friendly positions. We need at least 500 meters separation for gun runs." The mathematical reality of fast mover limitations crashed against the tactical necessity below, creating an impossible equation. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez's voice joined the radio chatter, his tone urgent but controlled. "Multiple RPG teams moving to flank our position. We need precision fires on specific coordinates, not area suppression." Sarah's hands clenched involuntarily as she recognized the tactical language of soldiers about to be overrun. The A-10 Thunderbolt sat silent on the tarmac outside, its massive Gu-8 cannon capable of delivering the exact kind of surgical precision the ground team desperately needed. Sarah glanced toward the flight line, then back at the worsening tactical display, her mind racing through calculations of distance, fuel load, and weapon systems. Have you ever witnessed someone step up when conventional solutions failed, knowing they had exactly the skills needed for an impossible situation? The situation deteriorated rapidly as enemy mortar rounds began falling near the SEAL team's position. "Base control, we have incoming indirect fire," the major reported, his voice strained against the background explosions. "2 men down, Need immediate medical evacuation. Cannot hold this position much longer. Sarah stepped closer to the tactical display, her maintenance clipboard forgotten. She could visualize the terrain from memory, having flown reconnaissance missions over that exact area months earlier. The ridgelines and valleys formed natural corridors that would funnel attacking forces into predictable patterns, perfect for the kind of low-altitude precision strikes her A-10 specialized in delivering. Colonel Harrison slammed his fist on the communications desk. "What other assets do we have in theater?" he demanded. The operations officer consulted his status board grimly. "Sir, the nearest Apache gunships are 40 minutes out, and the AC-130 is committed to another operation. The F-16s remain our only immediate option." But the F-16s couldn't solve this problem, and everyone in the command center knew it. Their speed and altitude requirements made precision engagement impossible when friendly forces were danger close to enemy positions. Sarah watched red icons multiply around the blue friendly marker, each representing another threat that conventional air support couldn't neutralize without risking fratricide. The radio erupted with automatic weapons fire in the background as Rodriguez transmitted. Multiple dismounts advancing from the northeast ridge. Estimate company strength assault developing. The tactical picture painted itself clearly in Sarah's mind. Enemy forces moving through terrain she knew intimately, approaching angles that required low-altitude engagement to effectively counter. The command center fell into tense silence as Major Thompson's transmission cut through static filled with the unmistakable sound of close-quarters combat. "Base control, Nightfall 1 is being overrun. We cannot maintain this position. Initiating emergency extraction procedures." Sarah felt her heart pound as she processed the tactical reality. Emergency extraction meant the SEALs would attempt to fight their way to an alternate landing zone under overwhelming enemy fire, a maneuver that rarely succeeded without substantial air support. The F-16s continued their high-altitude orbit, unable to provide the close-in firepower needed for such a desperate gambit. Colonel Harrison's voice carried the weight of command decisions that could cost lives. "All call signs. This is base control. Nightfall 1 requires immediate extraction support. All available assets converge on secondary LZ." But Sarah knew the mathematics were unforgiving. The Apache gunships remained 30 minutes out, and the alternate landing zone lay exposed to the same enemy positions now overrunning the primary objective. She stepped forward from her position along the wall, her voice cutting through the controlled chaos. "Sir, I can be airborne in the A-10 within 5 minutes." Every head in the command center turned toward her, expressions ranging from confusion to dismissal. Several officers exchanged glances as if wondering why maintenance personnel were interrupting critical operations. Lieutenant Davies' voice crackled over the radio from his high-altitude position. "Base control, Viper flight has visual on enemy movement, but cannot engage without danger to friendlies." The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. The most expensive, sophisticated fighters in the inventory couldn't solve a problem that required old-fashioned, low and slow precision. What would you do if you had the exact skills needed, but everyone around you doubted your capabilities? Colonel Harrison stared at Sarah with barely concealed irritation. "Mitchell, return to your maintenance duties. This is a tactical operation, not a training exercise." The dismissal stung, but Sarah held her ground as explosions echoed through Major Thompson's increasingly desperate radio transmissions. "Sir, with respect, I'm a qualified A-10 pilot with over 200 combat hours," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the skeptical faces surrounding her. "I know that terrain intimately and can provide the precision, close air support they need." The operations officer scoffed audibly while checking his personnel roster. The major's voice cut through their debate with urgent clarity. "Base control, enemy forces have overrun our position. Moving to secondary extraction point under heavy fire. 2 Kia, 3 wounded. Cannot hold without immediate air support." The tactical display showed blue icons retreating under pressure from overwhelming red enemy indicators. "Captain Mitchell, You're listed as maintenance personnel, the operations officer stated flatly. There's no record of current flight status or combat certification. Sarah's jaw tightened as bureaucratic obstacles threatened to prevent her from saving lives she knew she could save. The radio crackled again with automatic weapons fire as Rodriguez transmitted coordinates for emergency medical evacuation. We have critical casualties and are being pursued by superior numbers. Estimate 15 minutes before complete overrun. Colonel Harrison looked between Sarah and the deteriorating tactical situation, the weight of command decisions crushing down on him. Lieutenant Davies reported from overhead, frustration evident in his voice. Still unable to engage due to proximity to friendlies. The enemy knows we can't shoot, and they're using our own people as shields. Time was running out, and conventional solutions had reached their limits. Major Thompson's voice carried the finality of a man facing overwhelming odds. Base control, Nightfall 1 is compromised. Enemy forces closing from 3 directions. We cannot reach secondary extraction point with current casualties. The tactical display painted a grim picture as red enemy icons converged on the retreating blue markers. Sarah pulled her flight certification card from her coverall pocket, the plastic worn from years of missions. Sir, my credentials are current. I've flown close air support in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. The A-10 is designed exactly for this scenario. Colonel Harrison grabbed the card, his eyes scanning the details while radio chatter filled with the sounds of desperate combat. The operations officer leaned over to examine the certification, his expression shifting from dismissal to surprise. Sir, she's qualified on the A-10C with combat mission endorsements. Current medical and flight status confirmed. The bureaucratic wall began crumbling as documentation validated Sarah's claims, but precious seconds continued ticking away. Rodriguez transmitted coordinates for their final defensive position, his voice professionally calm despite the chaos surrounding him. Base control, we are establishing final perimeter at grid reference 7 for Alpha. Cannot move wounded any further. Need immediate fire support or we will be overrun within 10 minutes. Colonel Harrison looked directly at Sarah, the weight of command crushing down on him. Mitchell, if you're wrong about this, those men die. If you're right, and I don't let you try, they die anyway. The mathematics of leadership reduced to stark clarity as enemy forces closed the final distance. Sarah met his gaze without flinching. Sir, I can save them. Just give me the authorization and clear me for immediate takeoff. The A-10 sat ready on the tarmac, fueled and armed, waiting for someone who understood its lethal capabilities. Colonel Harrison's voice cut through the command center tension with decisive authority. Mitchell, you're cleared for immediate takeoff. Call Signhog 1. Save our people. Sarah sprinted toward the flight line, her coveralls flying behind her as she covered the distance to her waiting A-10 in record time. The Thunderbolt's engines spun up with their distinctive whine as Sarah completed the fastest pre-flight check of her career. Every system showed green as she taxied toward the runway, radio chatter filling her headset with updates from the deteriorating ground situation. Tower, Hog 1 ready for immediate departure. Cleared for takeoff, Hog 1. Good hunting came the controller's response as Sarah pushed the throttles forward. The A-10 accelerated down the runway, its twin engines pulling the heavily armored aircraft into the night sky. Behind her, she could feel the skeptical eyes of those who had dismissed her capabilities just minutes earlier. The tactical frequency crackled with Major Thompson's increasingly desperate transmissions. All stations, Nightfall 1 is down to final ammunition. Enemy assault imminent from multiple directions. Sarah banked hard toward the coordinates, her hands working controls with the precision of hundreds of combat hours. Lieutenant Davies' voice cut through the radio chatter from his high-altitude position. Base control, I have visual on Hog 1 departing. What is maintenance personnel doing in a combat aircraft? The irony wasn't lost on Sarah as she pushed her aircraft toward its operational ceiling, preparing to demonstrate exactly why the A-10 earned its fearsome reputation. The enemy had no idea what was coming for them, But they were about to learn why close air support pilots called the A-10 the most beautiful sound in the world. Sarah's targeting systems came online as the battlefield coordinates appeared on her display. What an incredible moment when someone finally gets the chance to show their true capabilities. Sarah's A-10 roared over the ridgeline at 300 feet, her targeting pod painting laser designators on enemy positions with surgical precision. The distinctive sound of twin turbofans announced her arrival as she rolled in her first gun run, the massive Gu-8 cannon spinning up to deliver devastating firepower. Nightfall 1, this is Hog 1 on station. I have visual on your position and multiple enemy targets. Authenticate with your current grid reference. Major Thompson's voice carried desperate relief as he transmitted coordinates while automatic weapons fire echoed in the background. Sarah's first burst from the 30mm cannon shredded an enemy machine gun position that had been pinning down the SEALs for hours. The distinctive BRRT sound of the Gu-8 echoed across the valley as she pulled up and immediately rolled in her second attack run, targeting the mortar team that had been dropping rounds dangerously close to friendly positions. In the command center, Colonel Harrison and his staff watched the tactical display transform as red enemy indicators began disappearing with clockwork precision. Lieutenant Davies transmitted from his high-altitude position, his voice filled with amazement. Base control, Hog 1 is engaging targets within 50 meters of friendlies. That's impossible accuracy for close air support. But Sarah made it look routine as she continued her devastating attacks, each gun run eliminating specific threats while avoiding any danger to the pinned-down SEAL team. Her years of experience in close air support missions showed in every perfectly calculated angle of attack, every precisely timed burst from her cannon. Major Thompson's voice carried newfound hope as enemy fire slackened around his position. Hog 1, you're cleared hot on the northern ridge. Outstanding accuracy. You're saving our lives down here. Sarah smiled grimly as she lined up her next target, knowing this was exactly what her A-10 was designed to accomplish. Sarah's final gun run silenced the last enemy position as the rescue helicopter touched down in the now secure landing zone. Major Thompson's voice carried exhausted gratitude through the radio. Hog 1, Nightfall 1 is secure. All casualties loaded and departing. You saved our mission and our lives. The A-10 climbed away from the battlefield, its mission complete, and every SEAL team member safely extracted. Sarah keyed her radio with quiet satisfaction. Nightfall 1, it was an honor to provide support. Glad to bring everyone home. The tactical display in the command center showed nothing but blue friendly icons departing the area. When Sarah's aircraft touched down on the home runway, a crowd had gathered on the flight line. Colonel Harrison stood waiting as she shut down engines and climbed from the cockpit, her coveralls still stained with grease from her morning maintenance duties. The contrast between her humble appearance and her devastating combat performance was not lost on anyone present. Lieutenant Davies approached with genuine respect, his earlier arrogance replaced by professional admiration. Captain Mitchell, that was the most precise close air support I've ever witnessed. I apologize for my earlier comments. Sarah nodded graciously, understanding that respect in military aviation was earned through demonstrated competence under pressure. Colonel Harrison stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of command recognition. Mitchell, that was exceptional airmanship. I'm recommending you for immediate reassignment to our close air support squadron. We need pilots who can deliver that level of precision when lives are on the line. As the crowd dispersed, Sarah looked back at her A-10 Thunderbolt, its battle-scarred exterior hiding the sophisticated systems and deadly accuracy that made it the premier close-air support aircraft in the world. Sometimes the most unassuming people possess exactly the skills needed when conventional solutions fail. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that heroes come in all forms and true capability isn't always visible on the surface.